Hello everyone, welcome back to my product chat series. Today our product chat is with Alokik, a product manager at Meta and former PM at Microsoft. Our main goal is to understand the product management journey in Meta and his advice as to how others can transition into the field. Hi, it's so nice to have you today. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good too. So how about first we talk about your journey? How did you transition into product management and why product management specifically?
Yeah, it's been a while since I did this transition. So my aspiration to be a PM started about 10 years ago when
Okay.
I first joined a job. So I was working at NetApp and I was working as a developer at that point, and I really had no idea about how the tech industry works.
Mhm.
And the project that I was working on was revamping the entire tech setup of the company.
Okay.
Um, and so I had a PM dedicated to that effort, and I would constantly get a chance to talk to him, work with him, see how he thinks about the strategy of the product, what we should do tactically, how we should prioritize things, and how we can have the most impact. And those were things that I had no idea about. And the more I worked with him, the more I realized, oh, this is something that would excite me if it was my full-time job, rather than just working on, my part of the code.
Yeah.
So that was basically what started the whole thing. And then uh, I did a master's degree in business and tried to get into this, but couldn't get into it in the first pass. So I worked as a business analyst for some time, and then worked as a business, not even, yeah, as a business analyst, maybe in a more conventional product role,
Mhm.
and then as a business analyst in a machine learning team, and then finally I transitioned into a PM role. And now I've been a PM for about 7 or 8 years almost, in various domains, in very technical products and very user-facing products. And it just amazes me how different each job is and how non-standard the role is. So the learning is just immense. Yeah, so that is the background context of my journey.
Sounds good. And as far as your job right now, what's like a day-to-day life for you as a product manager at Meta?
Um, it changes with every role. Um, so rather than sticking to one role, let me like be a little more broad.
Sure.
So there was a time when I was working on the ad side in Microsoft's advertising platform. The day-to-day of that role was more about understanding the data, figuring out what are the issues in the tech stack, working with engineers to prioritize the work, working with legal, privacy, and so on to make those changes available to the public, and then releasing it, and then doing a lot of A/B testing to understand the outcome of those experiments, and then finally shipping stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When I moved into a more user-facing role, let's say when I was with the Outlook team or the Windows operating system team, it was a larger scale of design development. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, you would start with some hypotheses, you would do a lot of customer interviews, do a lot of design research, get a lot of input uh, to build a strong case, because in these types of systems, it's really difficult to make a single change. So you need to do a lot of upfront work to validate your hypothesis without too much data. So you would rely heavily on user experience research, and even do your own interviews. And so a part 90% of my time during planning phase would just be in this. And then once we got into execution phase, then it would be working with your developers, making sure a full-fledged roadmap is there. You can build on top of things, and then working with marketing to do a release, making sure that the product has enough reach, recognition, and it can actually be understood by users. And the people can be aware of it, because awareness is a big aspect of a UI release. So working through the release itself, like when you do your first release, learning and iterating quickly from there to see if you could be doing something more to make your product more intuitive. So that creates a smaller cycle of this entire research phase to develop phase to build it again, to sort of start getting those growth metrics. So that's very different. And yeah, in Meta, it is very similar. Like I would say it's somewhere in between these two axes.
Yeah.
So this is a combination of machine learning experiences and the product side. So
Okay.
it's an interesting midway between these two things.
You're doing both at the same time, like,
Yeah, yeah,
okay. That's like vast, like broad categories of work.
yeah.
So why, like, you already answered like specifically like why you chose product management, because you actually saw someone doing it. So was there any specific thing you liked in product management that was more like, okay, I want to do this?
Uh, I think it's the strategic nature of the work that you would never otherwise think of. Like the first time I ever thought of the question, hey, what is the job to be done, was when I saw that PM work with me and explain to me why we should do this. Before that, I would always be told to do something, and I myself wouldn't question as to why I'm being told to do this. I would just do it blindly, right? So creating that sense of curiosity and inspiring you to think deeply about someone who would care enough to use your product is probably the reason why I like feel so strongly about product management now. Uh, if that answered it simply, I don't know. I can explain a bit more if you want me to.
That's fine. Like I understand, because when I was going in this career, I was like, it's one of the careers which have like a direct impact on business. So I was like, why
Yeah.
not? Yeah. Um, what are some aspects of the role that one should keep in mind before transitioning to this role? Because I know like right now a lot of people think, okay, you can easily get into like a managerial role. It's a very, it's more like a hype kind of career right now. What
Yeah.
things they need to look at more right now to see, okay, what is it product management and what they are getting themselves into?
Um, it's a many-armed beast, a many-headed hydra, I would say.
Yeah.
If you just want to go in for the glamour, you will be surprisingly mistaken, because uh, a large part of your job might just feel like you're doing coordination and process management, the things that are valuable, but they are not the most important bits of product management, but it's just needed to move the needle. Like coordinating between 10 different teams, 10 different sets of people, talking to them in their own language
Yeah.
is such an effort, right? Like most of my day is just going through context switches. So building uh those skills takes time, and in the beginning it might look like it's not valuable. Like, why do you want to do it? Maybe we can hire some program manager or project manager to do this. But I feel that if you're able to overcome that and take the work of a product manager more seriously by believing and working on all aspects of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly, then you will truly start enjoying the role of a product manager, because you need to build trust. Building trust is like communicating with a lot of people in their own language. Do that well, coordinate things well. Like as a junior PM, if you do these two things very successfully, people will start trusting you more.
Yeah.
You can't go on day one and say, I am a thought leader and I've thought through this domain and I'm an industry leading expert already just because I read a few books. Because the thing is that the people you're working with would have already thought very deeply about this problem. They would have their biases, and a part of your job is to get them out of those biases. But if you think that you're going to go on day one and lecture someone that, hey, I think how you're thinking is stupid, and or use some aggressive language like this, then you're not going to be successful. Like The most important lesson for me was to set my ego aside
Mhm.
when I first got into this domain and really humbly accept what people told me, even if I didn't believe it, roll with the punches, and then see something executed successfully, and then start building intuition.
Yeah.
That I think people should be ready for when they want to get into this domain.
Yeah, I get this a lot. Like whenever I ask for like advice, everyone is like, you need to keep your ego aside and then, talk to people
Yeah.
because here your ego will definitely be hurt. I was like, okay, I'll be ready for it.
Yeah, no one with a fragile ego should attempt product management because you need to take the village along. And if you have an ego, then
Yeah, I
everyone
avoid that way.
will not feel like working with you. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's like when I started working as a product manager, I was so confused. Like I was so nervous in the role because again, I have
Mhm.
never done that job and it's more like a on the job training. So
Yeah.
day one, I was getting these advice and I was like so scared. And I was a person who did not talk to a lot of people before. So it was really hard for me. And then I saw that I'm collaborating with like maybe 10 to 15 people a day and then having like 5 to 6 hours of meeting out of like 8 hours. That was like, it was really scary, but I think it gets better with time.
Yeah. Yeah.
What skills or background do you think a new PM should bring in the team?
It's like, what clothes should I wear? It's that type of a question because there are many right answers and it just depends on your context. Like if it's winter, you're going to wear winter appropriate clothes. If it's summer, you're going to wear summer appropriate clothes. So it depends on what your business needs,
Mhm.
where your product is in the product life cycle. Like the skills required for, let's say, a very V0 product that is yet to launch are very different from managing a mature product. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. I think every PM needs to go through the full product life cycle in many different business domains before they can call themselves a PM, because you wouldn't have seen the full spectrum of things until you've experienced it all. So yeah, for me, a mature product PM would be very savvy in with data, because that product would have a lot of logging and telemetry, and there'll be a lot of information. So making sense of that information, not just being a data engineer or a data analyst who pulls up reports, but trying to get those nuggets of gold in a lot of data and then making meaningful hypotheses and building your roadmap from that is probably what I would say is good for a mature PM.
Okay.
As you grow more senior, maybe the axis would be how to make sure that that product is maturing in the right direction. And if some strong decisions need to be made to pivot the product or kill some features or focus on another target audience,
Mhm.
that's really critical. For a growth stage product, the PM needs to be able to scale the product, meaning that they should be fairly savvy with data, but not so much as a mature product. They should also have a lot of experience in talking to customers,
Mhm.
figuring out which pockets of customers are underserved, and build new breakout areas for the product,
Mhm.
and scale the product better. And at that time, maybe some A/B testing would help too, because in the growth phase, you are trying to be more experimental with your hypotheses and you're making small bets, trying to get some incremental or step function returns depending on the bets. So you need to be able to evaluate that and how to make those hypotheses and how to invest in them. So that's the skill. In a very V0 product, you really need to be good at coming up with hypotheses for your customer segment and what are the problems that they are facing, and you need to be able to coax people to reveal it to you without being too leading, right?
Right.
So having a lot of experience talking to users, understanding their pain points and being more exploratory, and then building the hypothesis and roadmap is very important at that stage.
Makes sense. And once you start working as a PM, what do you think like how can one continuously grow in that field? Like what should you do? Like do you need to do some certifications or it's more like on the job training that you have to do continuously?
Again, there is no right answer for anyone, but I think some people do certifications. It's an easy way to at least get an understanding of the theory, but I don't think it helps so much.
Okay.
What really has helped me is making sure that I have an experience across the product lifecycle, across different domains, and that has like helped me build a strong intuition about different types of products and the challenges that come with different scales.
Okay.
Um, but the real thing is you need to experience it to actually learn it. Like no amount of theory is going to prepare you for the job. Like you can read a ton of books, maybe you can do like some university courses as well. So they're all good. Like it's not bad, but it's
Yeah.
not the real thing until you actually build and deliver something and understand how complex a process it is to make even small changes.
Okay.
Or yeah, just a respect for that process is something that has to be learned. It can't be read in a book, I feel.
I agree. So for like early grads, it's definitely difficult to get like an internship. So for instance, if they don't have like a chance for the internship, what do you suggest? Like, do you suggest working on their own product so maybe they can get the exposure to that?
Not everyone has that comfort or that economic benefit of being able to do their own thing. I did two things. Like I don't think I could have done my own thing back then when I was trying to get into my first PM job. So I gave myself a time horizon
Okay.
where I wanted to break into the domain, and then I set actual goals of what I wanted to accomplish
Mhm.
to be a successful PM. So,
Okay.
like I told you earlier on, I didn't directly jump into the PM role. Like I had a lot of side experiences. I started off as a dev, then did a business degree, then became a data analyst, then became a business analyst, and then became a PM. And so that was a very roundabout path, but I think that path was required for me to succeed as a PM because I got a lot of hard skills through that process. So the point I'm trying to make here is that there are different parameters you can toggle. Like certifications would be probably one answer. Theory books would be another answer. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. You should do it, but along with that, give yourself the time, set yourself the goals that you think you would want to achieve, and then work towards the next thing
Okay.
as you're doing each thing. So when I when I came out of college, I was thinking, okay, it's very difficult to get a PM role right from college. So
Yes.
maybe the first thing I will do is I'll become a business analyst. And I started off as a data analyst. I was just making reports and things like that. And even there, I learned a lot because sure, the day job was this, but then you'd have a VT meeting where you'd have a PM and you'd have a marketing person and so on. So you learn so much even from that. And then you can use those learnings to then become something more like that is closer aligned to PM. So that's how I got into a BA role. BA role was directly reporting to a PM. And through that, I gave the PM enough confidence by building enough hypotheses and getting enough of that data intuition and the business problem intuition to then get promoted into a PM role. So yeah, that's the long of it.
Long.
If you want shortcuts, yes, there are many approaches. And if you have the financial flexibility, you should start your own thing or work in a startup. All of those are options.
Makes sense. Okay. So for like the early like graduates or even like professionals, because I've seen like similar to your journey. So someone who is a business analyst, what advice would you like to give to them to just transition into the field?
Um, yeah, for a business analyst, I would ask what is their role and are they already doing the role of a PM? Because
Mm.
to be a PM, you should already be thinking like one. And I know this is very cliched, but when I was a BA, I was thinking, oh, what are the problems that my customers face? What data can I get? How can I make a business case to my leadership to say that, hey, we need to invest here? And then I learned after becoming a PM that that's exactly what the PM does. So it was not a promotion as much as a recognition that I was being a PM already. And uh, yeah, so think about what a PM does if that's what you want to be and start exhibiting those traits. if you don't get recognized at your current workplace, at least you can go with those stories and interview in the next workplace and say that, hey, I am doing this. And so maybe I do deserve that junior PM role.
Makes sense. Okay, and if you have like interviewed anyone like in the past for product manager roles, what do you look for in an applicant, be it on the resume or be it in person in the interview?
It depends on the seniority of the role. So for junior PMs, the expectation is different. For senior PMs, the expectation is different. For PM managers, the expectation is different. And I've had the chance to, across my career, interview for all these three candidate types.
Okay.
But since you're specifically asking about junior PMs, my take is that at the resume review stage, you really need to make sure that your resume is presentable, formatted correctly, and has the right sort of setup that HR is looking for in a PM role. So I feel that this is like a funnel, right? Like you get like thousands of resumes,
A lot
but
of, yeah.
you don't really go filtering those thousands of resumes. There is like one pass filter that's just beyond you. So you just need to do that basic legwork of, hey, what is the job description? What is the role? And do things in your resume actually add up to that role? Make sure that you have that setup. Make sure that you have some sort of a framework to your jobs
Mhm.
and job descriptions, meaning that I did this because this was a problem and this was my hypothesis and this is what we implemented and this is the metric that moved. That's sort of a simple framework,
Yes.
just helps. And then do you also want me to talk about the interview process itself or just the okay?
The interview to like, what do you
Yeah.
look specifically?
On the interview front, I mean, different companies have different takes on the interview process for junior PMs. I'll tell you what I know, and I might be wrong, and this might not generally apply. But basically, you will be asked like one or two case studies. You will be asked some behavioral questions, and maybe you might be asked some KPIs or metrics related question like how will you define success for this product or this feature if you were the PM for this, and what are your hypotheses? There are ways to answer this, but being structured is always going to be your friend.
Mhm.
So I mean, every company has its own framework, and there are some popular things like star and this and that. Like you can, I don't want to like explain how each company creates a framework for interviews, but if you go on YouTube, I'm sure you'll get a lot of this. But forget about all the frameworks, right? Just think about, hey, this is what the question is. So I need to have like a simple fundamental framework to this. Like, hey, what is the problem? Am I understanding it correctly? Who does it apply to? What are the key pain points that this audience has? And what can I do to address this, either through solutions or through better defining a metric that will identify this problem and help us zone in deeper? And we could use this as a North Star. So I'm just making all of this up, but if you have like some fundamental level of clarity and you can just cascade from one step to the next, to get some logical outcome, and you have to do some preparation. You can't just go one day and just say, yeah, I'm good at this.
Yeah.
uh, I think you will be able to crack the interviews after a certain point.
Yeah, I really like that answer. It's really helpful for me. Um, what are your future aspirations or goals within PM?
I love the role. So for me, it is about getting experiences across different domains. Now I've had like one pass of going through the entire product life cycle, of course, in different products. But for me now, I want variety. I want different domains. I want that experience.
Yeah.
And then once I have some proven industry successes, then I will think of going to the next level and think of that director role or something in this decade, right? That would be the next good step for me, or maybe even a startup. Like you never know where life will take you. So yeah.
Yes. Okay. Good luck with that. Also, do you recommend any certifications or courses specifically for anyone who's looking to go into product management?
Again, there's no one answer. It depends on what you want to learn. You want to learn about marketing, there are good courses. You want to learn about data, there are good courses. You want to learn about product thinking, design thinking, there are good courses or books. Um, there are
And
so
your
many
favorite
courses
books?
now. There are so many courses now
Yes.
that you just go with what your search engine recommends you. You would be in a good place. The key thing is
Mhm.
make sure you go through the breadth before you go into depth. So you don't want to be such a savvy data guy that you can actually become a data engineer, but you can't become a product manager.
I like
Similarly, you don't want to be so savvy that you can be the PMM rather than the product manager. The problem with this domain is that you need to have like a good horizontal personality and then maybe depth in one or two domains that are important for that company or for that business. And that's how you will sort of be successful even for your interviews and
yeah,
even at the job. Yeah.
yeah, I love that. Okay. Perfect. That answers all my questions. Thank you so much for taking out the time today to answer all the questions that about your journey. It's really inspiring, especially all the roles that you went through. So thank
Yeah.
you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Just one thing, can I share your LinkedIn link too, so anyone wants to reach out?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Feel
Okay,
free to.
perfect. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.